BBB Scam Talk. I'm John Infante, social media specialist for the Better Business Bureau. I'm here with Steven, our customer review and investigation specialist.
Hey, everybody.
And today we're going to be talking about a scam that was, the most recent scam warning from the Council of Better Business Bureaus that they put out today, as well as another consumer tip that is a little bit timely with one of the holidays or recognition days coming up this weekend. So if you follow BBB or law enforcement, you'll know about the Can You Hear Me Now scam that we've talked about. But there's a new kind of twist on it. And so, Steven, why don't you tell us about that new variation on the scam?
So, as John said, this has really been one of the most widely reported, popular, and highly publicized scams in the media over the past couple of months. And really, previously, before, there wasn't really any sort of twist on it. You were just getting calls and they were asking, can you hear me? So really what we found in recent reports over the past couple of months is that a lot of these reports are related to travel. So essentially, if you aren't previously aware of the Can You Hear Me Now scam, really how it breaks down is that you get a phone call from someone claiming that they're from TripAdvisor, they're giving some sort of general statement stating that they are a TripAdvisor, or they're saying that they're affiliated with some sort of cruise line or famous hotel. But ultimately, they introduce themselves and ask that kind of dreaded question, can you hear me now? So if you answer yes to that question stating, can you hear me now? Then the individual begins to sell you some sort of travel package or stating you've won some sort of free prize or free trip. And ultimately, what we've really found from reports so far is that regardless of the answer that you give to the can you hear me now question, the individual calling you most likely has access to your sensitive information, including your credit or debit information, and they due to some sort of data breach. But really, the purpose of the scam is that the scammer is trying to get you to say yes, so they can record your voice saying yes and use that to authorize certain fraudulent charges on your accounts.
So it's kind of what the security industry would call a kind of multi-vector attack, where it's getting harder just to run your standard credit card fraud. So now they're trying to get these additional, break through additional security by getting your voice on tape. And it's got elements of an imposter scam and elements of a data breach and this new, it could be cramming. They could be trying to put this on your phone bill or your cable bill as well.
Yeah, that's what we found with recent reports as well, is that it's not only limited to your credit card or debit card or banking information, but a lot of times these charges are being added on to utility bills such as phone and internet.
All right, so what can our viewers do to protect themselves from this type of scam?
Well, really, BBB has a couple of different tips that are relatively easy to enact, and it really helps you limit the likelihood that you fall victim to the scam and suffer any sort of monetary loss. So first and foremost, probably the easiest way to limit your ability to fall victim to the scam is that if you hear can you hear me now on the phone, you just hang up the phone and you don't call them back. If you don't say yes and they don't have a recording of your voice saying yes, you're far less likely to become a victim of their fraud. I think secondly, one of the biggest things that consumers can do to limit the likelihood that they get a lot of these phone calls from scammers is to join the National Do Not Call Registry list, which is relatively easy to do online on the internet. And secondly, they can also use some robocall blocker apps, which there's a wide variety available on your smartphone as well.
And that's not going to stop the scammers because they don't pay attention to the Do Not Call registry, but it should make their calls stand out more since you'll be getting fewer marketing calls.
Yes, yeah, certainly. It'll be a lot easier for you to pick them out.
And then any other tips?
I think lastly, and probably most importantly, if you're not doing it already, especially if you do get a phone call, you do say yes, and you kind of realize it after the fact, is to continue to monitor your bank accounts, your credit card and debit card statements, as well as your phone and utility bills as closely as you possibly can. And that really gives you a great opportunity that if there are any fraudulent or unauthorized charges on those particular statements, that you can identify them right away and get them taken care of.
I think one thing we're seeing with this scam is that you're starting to see, as we said, like this kind of remix idea where they're taking some old scams and using the Can You Hear Me Now as a new twist. So I think it's probably just something for if you get a call from a number you don't recognize, or even from when you do and the person you don't recognize on the phone, just watch out for that phrase because there's really no telling what they're trying to do when they get you to say yes on the phone.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you'd rather be safe than sorry.
So with Earth Day coming up on Saturday, another thing we wanted to bring up and remind our viewers about is when you may be looking this weekend to make sure that your purchases are environmentally sound and reduce your impact on the environment with your buying decisions. And that leads us to greenwashing. So Stephen, can you explain to our viewers what greenwashing is?
Yeah, certainly. So for those of our viewers who aren't familiar with the term greenwashing, really what it is any act of a business in their advertising, regardless of the medium of advertising that they're using. It's when they make some sort of misleading or deceptive statement about the environmental benefits of their products. And so where that comes into concerns with BBB and our BBB Code of Advertising is that really what we expect of any business out there in their advertising, regardless of it's an environmental benefit claim, a savings claim, or the objective results or benefits of a product, is that we expect them to have reliable and scientific and objective substantiation to those claims prior to making the advertisement. And so it's, as we know, with kind of the transition to green and renewable energy and biodegradable and kind of the whole green movement itself, greenwashing is becoming a lot more prevalent.
Yeah, and this comes from a similar term that we use, pinkwashing, where people use charitable claims very often around breast cancer awareness. That's where the pink comes from, to make these kind of unfounded claims about how much of your purchase is going to help charities. So Stephen, what are some examples of these claims you should investigate? And I think the important thing with environmental is to remember this is not just going to be what you see in an ad on the internet or in television, but it's very often on the packaging of the product itself.
Yeah. So there's all sorts of claims out there that advertisers consistently use, whether they're talking about their product itself or the packaging that the product is in. And so one of the most common phrases out there that should always just catch your attention and kind of in your head make you ask further questions is the terms free of or non-toxic. And they're extremely common, and these are things that the advertiser should have some sort of scientific and reliable evidence that the packaging or the product itself is not harmful to humans or the environment, and that it is degradable when using that particular statement. And so that's one of the most common phrases out there.
Another one that we see very often is something's made with renewable energy or renewable materials. So what should people kind of be looking for as they try to figure out if a company is making that claim in good faith?
I think it's always beneficial for consumers to do their due diligence when looking into a particular product and its advertising claims. And so really importantly with this particular claim is to look into the percentage of the product that's generated from using renewable energy. Because if you really think about the statement, they could say that the product was generated with renewable energy when only 1% of it was generated with renewable energy. Mm-hmm. And they're not false, but it's somewhat deceptive. So I think taking the time to do that due diligence and making sure that a substantial amount of the product and the energy that was used to create that product was used with renewable energy is extremely important in order to not be misled.
So a couple other ones, just to keep an eye on, is if something is biodegradable or compostable, and those are very specific terms about how something breaks down in the environment, as opposed to using some sort of special process. And then something claims to use less waste in its production. We want to probably ask, what was your baseline when you measured less from? And I think the last one is that oftentimes these aren't really claims in the sense of marketing materials or sentences or words, but the seals and those certifications that we see on products, which is kind of, there's two things you need to check out with those, right?
Yeah, there's two different aspects of seals and certifications that we feel is beneficial and important to look into as part of your due diligence process. First and foremost, you want to make sure that the business and its product is actually certified with that particular organization. It's really easy to put a seal on a product, but just to make sure to quickly go to the organization's website, you can usually type in the product on the website and find out if it's certified or not. And secondly, and probably more importantly, is to actually look into the certification organization that's providing the seal, and taking the time to, one, just briefly research the company and making sure that it's well established, and that the certification is meaningful and well respected within the industry. And secondly, also to make sure that the organization itself is an independent third party that provides these certifications, and that it's not necessarily affiliated with the business and its product whatsoever.
All right, so thanks for joining us this week, Stephen.
It was good to be here.
Yeah, so if you want to learn more about greenwashing, you can go to bbb.org/green and see the rest of our tips about making sure your purchases are environmentally sound and the advertising around that. And then to check businesses, submit a customer review, and file a complaint, you can go to bbb.org. Thanks, Stephen. Thank you all.
Thanks.